see if the binder is, if the binder is just, I just saw the recordings stop my sentence there. Linseed oil, then it's not toxic. And then you can work with just vegetable oils. Safflower oil is one of the other dilutants to make a glaze. Oil, beam paints in Manitoulin Island. They're an amazing company for materials for paints. They now do a non-plastic acrylic paint. They have superb watercolors, and they do hemp oil dilutant for oil painting that's just made out of natural oil, hemp, and other oils, and no toxins at all. So I'm now able to go back to painting oils without any problem with my health. So I recommend making the decision to switch if you are in the world.
Yeah, the aromatic part of it. I love the smell of oils, but I haven't,
linseed oil. I don't love the odorless fumes, odorless Varsol and things like that. Just because they're odorless doesn't mean they're healthy. They're actually more dangerous because the fumes are so much stronger, but you can't smell them, so you don't notice how much you're breathing in. And that's where the danger lies with things like liquid. I would never use those products again in my lifetime. So
I have an air exchanger that I put on when I'm
it's
working.
not enough because the painting is off gassing for a year while it dries. So wherever it's hanging, in whatever, like if you sold the painting, those people who bought it are breathing in the fumes from that painting. So I just don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
I don't want to kill people with my art, unless they're bad people, of course.
You're gonna have to start putting hazardous on the side of my.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm an environmentalist, and I used to teach environmental materials. So the indoor air quality issues, like indoor air is 100 times more toxic than exterior air. So having researched and learned all that, and I used to teach it to interior design students, I recognize the importance of addressing that, certainly with decoration elements. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've got friends that he was a printmaker, and the same problem in printmaking. All the off-gassing from all the cleaners and etching acids and things in your.
Yeah.
And it's worse because with that, you're working your head right over top of the work. You're looking down on it, and it's going straight up. He said a lot of them died of like cancers, and they died early, and because of that. So it is something. I think there's a whole show and awareness on that as well. But today I guess we're going to talk about your work. I mean, maybe we could let's pop up a slide there, David. Sure. See what we got on.
One of my favorite pieces from last year. So this is it's called Storm Approaching Kakabeka, something like that. Can't remember exactly. It's it's watercolor, and I painted it in the studio after having done my research paintings pleinair on site at my cabin. I just by chance bought this very cheap cabin with 18 acres along the water.
Nice.
Up north of Thunder Bay. So it's a 2-day drive to get there. But every summer we go up for a month and finish renovating this cabin because it was only half built. So last year we did the roof. So a lot of the emotions that I carry with me all year and put into my art are from having been in this pristine wilderness. Our next door neighbors across the river are just eagles. That's the only, like, for that 18 kilometers, 18 acres plus like a couple kilometers beyond. It's just us on the river. Once in a while, there's a day tripper going past or fisherman or something. But yeah, we have a complete heavenly experience going up there. So this is just a memory of the storm. And also, as you can see, it's kind of an axonometric perspective. It's not at ground level. So sometimes my mind goes into that angle when it's a memory of a place rather than actually physically sitting in en plein air. This is me looking back at something. So my angle from it is kind of thinking of it as a distant experience rather than being there in person.
Yeah, I found that probably the strongest works of an artist are from memory rather than painting location. specific, like every little detail of a location,
Yeah.
your memory kind of, it removes all the peripheral things that are not important. And your
Hmm.
memory remembers exactly why you were there and what do you remember about it. And then you add your skill set to that and you get magic. It's just
Voila.
like, it's,
Yeah, I also find that when I'm painting from memory, I'm painting the emotions of what it felt like to be there. So it's
yeah,
not my eyes doing the decision making anymore. It's my subconscious or my emotional memories. And but I can't paint a successful painting if I have only taken a photograph of a place. When I
yeah,
do the plein air painting, it's at least 20 minutes, even in freezing conditions. And while I'm painting, I'm memorizing the details and the essence of that place. Then when I go back to the studio, I've got more than just a photograph, and I've got the exact colors because I mixed them on site, and the
right,
results are, so much more ingrained. And then you have that library of information in your head that you can then, keep, and you've got it all cataloged there, and it comes back in paintings like this afterwards.
right. No, it's, yeah, they're nice and fresh.
This one's on plein air, and it's at the Kakabeka site, sitting on the Canadian Shield rock that our cabin is situated on. And I'm right at the water level. There's little dragonflies in the foreground there. And these are just, for me, when I paint on location, it's like a postcard. I'm wanting to remember all of the things, all of the language that I've experienced while I was sitting there, so that I can take those back to the studio and work them. So as you can see in the distance there, is my mouse working from here or not? Can I point to
I
something?
don't think you can control it. I
Okay,
think,
so right in the middle at water level, there's an airplane taking off.
oh, I
And
see a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's a little white hut in the distance. So that's the only neighbors we have is this hobby airport above the cliffs on the other side of the river. And once in a while, they take off on the water, the biplanes. And I think it's the coolest thing because Ray will go, "Oh, there's noise." I say, "Yeah, but it's so nice to have a plane instead of cars going past all the time." It's such a cool thing to watch a plane take off. And he tips his wings when I'm in the river swimming and he's taking off over my head. And yeah, it's one of those like cool experiences that you don't get to have
Yeah.
every day, right? So,
Do
um,
they do the eagles do the same thing? They tip their wings at you when they're up there in the air.
eagles do. They chatter. They go "Ah, ah," in the mornings when it's foggy, like they're mad about the weather.
Yeah.
And the day we were leaving, the eagles had been at the top of the trees watching us for the whole month. And then the day we were leaving, without we hadn't done anything yet to show that we were leaving, the eagle suddenly came down to the lowest tree to say goodbye. So it's a
Oh,
pretty cool,
yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty special place. And the
Yeah.
energy of it is what I paint in my heart. It's where I want to be. If I could be there all the time without bugs, it would be great.
Yeah. Without bugs is something else. Fall is usually better for that. But
Yeah, we
I
usually go
find,
up in August and then it's okay. Mhm.
yeah, I find that when I used to do watercolors on location, if you're just quiet and you're sitting there, the beaver will come around and
Mhm,
the whiskey jacks and
mhm.
all the birds, they just accept you as
Yeah,
as safe, and they'll come within 5 feet of you.
yeah,
But if you're agitated and moving around a lot, they won't come near you. But if you're just sitting there quietly doing your thing, it is an amazing feeling to be at one with nature like that.
yeah,
Uh, People
absolutely.
need to experience that once in a while, and it's just nice quiet time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw
So
an American white pelican last year, just meandering down the river.
yeah.
Ray
Oh,
goes, "I think it's a swan." I said, "No, the swan has its head at the bottom of the neck." And this is get out the Google and figure out which kind of bird is
you
it.
have
Yeah.
your bird book with you, do you? So do you look for or go out for the so-called the golden hour, the early mornings to the late evening shots? Do you
Okay,
look for those?
I will admit this on live TV. I do not like to wake up before 11. And today's video was traumatized me. I only got 5 hours sleep because I had to wake up early today. So there's my secret admission. And people say, "How do you do so much in a day?" Well, I sleep really well. So that's really important to me. But when we're at the cabin, my whole world shifts and I am up before the sun because the best view on the river is just before the sun comes up. And I have some, yeah, I'll show you some sunrise stuff. So every morning can you see that?
Yeah.
So every morning I'm up and capturing the fog on the river and the sun before it comes up, and then the haze of the sun shifting colors. And that's my magic time. So for some reason, I'm able to wake up at 6 a.m. when I'm at the cabin because it's worth it.
Yeah, and the sun usually is by that time is right in your window. So
Yeah.
I'm an early riser in the summertime as well because the sun gets up early.
Yeah.
Up here.
The one just before this, that was pleinair this winter just looking out the window at our backyard. I was doing the Strata Easel Challenge for the month of January. So it was the one before the one with the fence in it. That was from the Strata Easel month of January.
Yeah.
Just looking at. And
do you find watercolors more challenging than, say, oils in your work?
Watercolor to me is like breathing, like it's the easiest for me. But I know most people say watercolor is the most difficult because, especially when on wet, the challenge is to not control it and to let the paint have a say in how it wants to meander. And most people are more leaning towards control. And I find like with oil or acrylic, you have to make a decision where your edge is. And if you put the paint down, is it going to stay there? Or are you going to blend it? And every single brush stroke is a decision. Whereas watercolor, you put the paint down and the page is wet and the paint goes where it wants to. And then you decide to pull it back sometimes and control it a little. But it's that freedom of control that I love about watercolor, that it has its own mind. It's more like a cat than a dog, shall we say, if you're comparing.
So do you use a light pencil?
No pencil at all. No
pencil at all. Okay, just direct on the paper.
None of even when I do portraits, I don't do pencil. Like I did this one. This is a live class I did the other day, right? And I just did that live with no pencil. Just I'm drawing with a brush, basically.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. No, that's nice to have a nice confidence of that. I know with watercolor, I found it to be more of a controlled medium because you learn a lot of things. You have to learn about color for sure.
Yes, definitely have to do that color. Yeah.
Otherwise, everything turns to mud if you're inexperienced, because you realize that some of these premixed colors have 6, 7 different colors to make them. And when you add that to another color that has 6 or 7 colors, now you have 14 colors going down.
It just goes gray. Yeah, well, this one, no, go back again. Can you go back? Yeah, this one here is live plein air at Tiny Marsh. And you can see the background there. I was playing with pushing the envelope of color blending and really getting into the grays because they are successful when they get really rich. The grays can be beautiful. And then I added the pops of, autumn trees. This was in the fall. So those oranges are the complementary opposites, and making sure that you're aware of what's going to lighten your grays and, how to bring up those layers. Even though you get the muddy areas, use those muddy areas to your advantage. Right. And then you can strengthen the painting by having those contrasts. So that one's planet. That one's 12 by 16, that painting. So it's larger.
So is that usually one of your regular sizes when you're out in landscape?
I do either 8 by 10 or 12 by 16.
So how are they?
That's because I pre-purchased my frames, so I paint to fit the size of my frames.
That's smart, because otherwise you're stuck with all these odd size frames that are just.
And then you have to go to a framer and have custom stuff, and it's expensive to have a show that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everything glazed that you've got. So glazed work.
This one is the beaver pond at Killarney last April, and it was pissing down with rain, and I was standing under the hatchback painting this, and if you look closely at the tree areas, you can see raindrops of blocks texture of the tree. So it was an experience. And that's what I love about this painting, is that for me, I look at it and I just remember that moment of standing in the cold in April and the rain's pouring down, and my paints aren't melting though. So everything's good. I can get some strong color in there. But it was a fast and furious 15 minutes kind of standing there.
Well, exactly. And it's decision making on the fly. You have to
Mhm.
realize how quickly you have to make decisions on when you're dealing with elements like wind and rain and sun.
Yeah.
All those things are really affecting, what you're doing. So the skill set, it only took you 15 minutes to do that painting. But he says, no, it took 35 or 40 years to
Yeah,
learn.
exactly.
But it does. Yeah, for
When
sure.
people ask me, "Oh, if it only took you an hour, why is it so expensive?" Or whatever. Well,
I work.
because of all the courage it took to get out there. It's not just the painting time as well. I mean, yes, there's the years of training and education, but also packing up my bag, paying for a hotel, staying somewhere, getting in the car and finding the location, and all of the challenges of how far do I have to tramp into the woods to get the good location to paint something, and the hiking. So it's the actual painting time is the only pleasurable part. The rest is all work.
It's the 80-20 rule for sure. There's a lot. So how does now you sell in art galleries, and you got a gallery in Toronto and such?
I have some pieces in Blue Crow Gallery. She likes to have smaller pieces because she's so well stocked with art. So she prefers smaller pieces. And I'm in Blue Crow is down in Toronto, and then I have Blue Mountain Foundation for the Arts and Quest Gallery in Midland. So Blue Mountain is in Collingwood, and I sometimes have work in Aurelia Museum, not at the moment, but yeah. Up here around Georgian Bay, there are 300 artists in a half an hour radius of my house, so it's artist central.
Yeah,
John Martin lives 2 doors down from me. Like, everybody just flocks to this area because it's so beautiful to paint here, and it's less expensive than living in the city.
Yeah. Well, you are in the Group of Seven country a little bit there, so
Exactly. Not just a little bit, right? Right at the edge of. I was out walking in a window one day a few years ago in November, and it was a blustery day. Hold on a second, Siri, turn the music off. Siri, stop. Siri's not listening to me. Hey Siri, stop the music. Oh, there, thank you.
I hate her.
I forgot the hey.
I will not have her in my house.
Well, I didn't buy it. It was a Christmas present from my husband, so I'm stuck with it. I love having the music in the studio, though. Yeah, I was in the wedding. It was November, and it was a stormy day, and I suddenly looked up and I went, "Oh my God, I'm in a Tom Thompson painting. There is the same view of that November skies." I think it's called something like that. From it's at the. Where did you go yesterday, Camille? What's that gallery? Kleinberg, at the gallery there.
Yeah.
And I was just standing there and it was just like you just wanted to breathe deeply and soak it all in because it's right there. It's still there. It's just.
Yeah, for some of our, some of our audience, understanding that sometimes that's a trek everybody sort of wants to do at least once in their life. They want to go through the parks, and they want to visit at Kleinberg. They want to go there, and I mean, they can see a lot of this stuff at the AGO and Toronto and different things. They all have.
AGO has a great collection.
But I think it's really important to if that's the kind of painting you want to do in the country you love, you've got to go walk it and take a brush with you.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've been going up to Lake Superior because the cabin is up at the top of Lake Superior, and we drive through Algoma country and A.Y. Jackson. It's absolutely spectacular. Last year we went up in February just to have a bit of a winter trip. We flew up, and on the way back our flight got canceled, so we ended up renting a van and driving back in the winter along the shores of Lake Superior, and it was breathtaking. Just, this is Ontario, and it's the most beautiful views I've seen. I've been to 60 countries, and I don't want to leave Canada anymore. Labrador and Lake Superior are my 2 favorite places in the world.
You didn't like painting in rainy Ireland or someplace where you were?
I don't mind the rain. I actually prefer it to snow. So Did I say
Yeah.
that?
Well, I don't like rain right now. No, I don't want rain right now where I am. But turns into ice pellets.
Yeah.
But no, it's and I've painted watercolors a long time, and I've actually switched back to oils for what I'm doing. But I was just for what's happening. But when I'm on the fly or running around, I like the watercolors as well.
Yeah.
It, it's a
So
good
those
thing.
are the originals of the one that you just posted up there, and there are two, but I just gave you one for the image.
Yeah,
They were painted together, but they're not necessarily to be, stay
yeah,
together.
yeah.
Kind of like Siamese twins.
Yeah. Uh, they I just what I like about it. Okay, the next thing is, are you a risk taker with your brush? Like you got something that's really going well, and then you think, should I do this?
We
Like,
go too far.
yeah,
Yes, I am, because I don't think when I'm painting. I try to empty my mind.
yeah,
But I have a different, like when I'm doing watercolor, yes, it's 100% risk. I don't even think. I look at what I'm painting, or I think about what I'm painting, and it just goes. And I try to have an empty mind, because then the subconscious comes out, and the most creative depth of my work is from the subconscious. Sometimes from dreams I've had too.
yeah,
But this one here and the one I just showed you, the mixed media, there are 20 layers in this painting, maybe 25 in this one here. So yeah, there's a risk factor, because if I put on another layer, I could ruin what I've got already. And so there's a completely different process, because my watercolors, they're done a la prima, so they're finished immediately. I might go and touch up things the next day, but mostly they're a la prima. But there's acrylic method that I've been using this past year. um, it has to dry, and then I go back in and I go, oh, I want to put more of this in, or I want to lighten it. And so when I started to work with acrylics, I suddenly felt like, oh my goodness, there's so many decisions to make, and how do I know when I'm done? And in some cases, I was having a big show last year at Double Doors Gallery, and it was 45 paintings in the show. So I was productive, and I was getting things ready, but there was a deadline. And then this piece and one other besides it, they didn't go in the show. I just kept working on them. I kept adding more layers to see how far I could push myself. And it went for weeks. I just kept adding more layers and playing. And so it was a very frivolous time. But people said, what are all those dots in the painting for? And I said, well, the dots are the smell of the bog myrtle plants that exist at the cabin, and they only grow in that area and in Scotland, and I haven't seen them anywhere else. I'm a landscape architect, and I'd never seen them before, but you're sitting beside them while you're painting, and there's these pops of orange and pine smells, like an orange, like fruit,
yeah.
and I kept looking like, where's that smell coming from? And there was no flower. It was just leaves, leaves with little seed pods. And so I was going crazy, because the first year we went up there, I didn't have any internet at all, so I couldn't Google or anything. And so I had to come back and bring some of the plant with me and do my research. And they grow in bogs, and they smell so pungent, like they're beautiful smell, but they also keep the bugs away. So they're super wonderful to have when you're up north with black flies and things. So those colors are the pungent pings of smell that I was smelling while I was painting. And I really love this piece, because I took it to that level of courage, that I wasn't holding myself back, and I didn't let fear say, okay, I don't want to ruin it. That fear of ruining something actually restricts your creative joy, and you're holding on to. So it's that that law of attachment. If you're attached to something, you're too attached to it, you will actually not go to the level that the painting is capable of arriving at, because you're holding back for fear of losing what you've already created. And with
Yeah,
acrylics,
that's what I meant about the
right,
bold
you can
brush.
keep adding white and darkening it, and you can keep. So yeah.
With mixed media, you can do that, but I can't do that with watercolor. It just
No,
gets,
watercolor's a one-way street, and when you're done, you're done. And if you go too far, you've ruined it. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. No,
Yeah.
it's um, think so. How are okay? There's a perception about watercolors, I guess, in a market. They said, I guess you go through trends where some people say, "Oh, I like oils or acrylics." They want stuff on canvas, or they want deep canvases. I guess they're not the thin profile. Some want stuff.
Gallery profile, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, how does watercolors fit in there as far as public perception of, I guess, value and I mean, they need to somewhat understand what they're getting. Like you're getting a spontaneous response to things, especially with yours. Um,
The public
that,
doesn't realize the difference. I mean, the public doesn't care how much time you spent on a painting or what the research was or how many hours deep in the bush with bugs you went to get this painting or whatever. They just care about whether they like it. And my friend Murray Van Halem says, well, you're not selling art, you're selling relationships, or you're having a relationship with the client, right? So that's the business we're in, is having people recognize your emotional components that you've put into this, but it's also about whether it matches their couch or whether it fits over the piano. And that's the reality of our business. Some people just want something that looks nice in their home, but it also has to be a painting that they feel good about and that gives them a positive experience to live with, because it is a responsibility. When you think about, we're putting something in their home that they're going to live with forever. And after a while, if they get bored with it or if they hate it, that's not a good
no.
That's not a good way of presenting art for anybody. Like, it doesn't help the art business if that's what's happening. And so there's a difference between public art and personal art that I make for myself and art that I sell. And I have a collection like this blue piece here. I won't sell it because I put too much of myself into it, too many layers of emotion and experience, and it would never fetch the value of what it means to me. So it's in
Right.
my private collection, right?
It's hard to create those connections with people. Sometimes you have to talk with them and understand them. It takes a while for them to understand what's going on. So that's why a good gallerist is important, to convey your, I guess, emotional responses to what you're doing. For them to take that emotion home. Oh, I understand what she's doing. I want to be a part of that understanding. Therefore, I want maybe a piece of her work. So yeah, it's important that happen. Otherwise,
Finding the good public is also, like, that's the ultimate challenge too, is like finding the good public. And by that, I mean people who recognize and appreciate the processes of art. And they're not buying something because it matches their living room. They're buying it because they love the painting and they'll repaint the living room to match the painting. That's the kind of client I like to find. They aren't as common as we would like.
Well, I've had people say, "Oh, well, this is meant for there," and they say, "Well, no, I'm going to put it in the bathroom," and they go, "Oh, no, you're not. I'm not going to sell it to you." And he said, "Well, you have to realize it's probably the most occupied room in the house. Like,
it is, but it's also humid, so it can ruin the painting. Really,
that's the other thing.
if it's in a humid environment, right? If it's not coated properly.
Yeah, and that's the important thing with watercolors. Light is a dangerous thing with it. You don't put them in direct light.
Watercolors will fade. I have a friend who's a conservator, Passia she's called, Janice Passia, and she has given me, I just met her recently, we do pleinair together. She's as crazy as I am with the -20 art, but she's really given me so much information already about the value of conservation and watercolors. The big thing with watercolors is the light fading them, but she says watercolors are as long lasting as oils and acrylics. So they actually more than acrylics, she seemed to think. So the risk of, oil paints crack and acrylics can actually peel off the canvas over time if they're too heavy. And, the risks that she's come into contact with, fixing those things. She said watercolors are the ones that are least likely to fall apart if
Right.
they're acid-free cotton, arches or proper paper and not
they're archival. Yeah, pH, neutral pH of some sort. So what is your paper? What kind of papers do you use mostly for your painting?
Arches and sometimes recently Winsor Newton, but Winsor Newton gets a very strong dry brush. I've also been making my own handmade paper. Just before I broke my arm, I had made 15 sheets of handmade paper, and I was just taking old paintings that I didn't know what to do with, like bad paintings that were going to be scrapped. And I thought, well, I don't want to put these in a landfill. So what can I do? Well, I can make them back into paper. So I just soak them in water, put them in the blender, blender them. Once they're like a pulp, then I can store that pulp in a tub for a few days. And then once I have enough pulp, put them in a big bin, go on Amazon and buy the frames that have a sieve. And you just put the sieve in the water and you lift it up and there's your paper and you turn it over. And then you want to do sizing. And sizing, it's what's different between Winsor Newton and Arches. Winsor Newton has a really strong sizing, so the paint doesn't soak in very quickly. So you'll get a really good dry brush if you want that David Milne look to your paintings. That dry brush, really easy on Winsor Newton paper, I've discovered. And Arches has less sizing, so it soaks in faster, but it does a really lovely glaze. And Arches was always my go-to, and it's always been my favorite. But
I've used a lot of the center cuts and things from mat board and soak them as well. They make lovely paper from that.
Oh
as
yeah, that would do.
Yeah, because it's all acid.
It's already acid free. It's easy to turn back into paper.
Well, as long as you get acid free, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And and if you got some, it's kind of nice to work. I got a number of sheets that are more warm colored than white, so you can also use them in the blender. But like you said, soak them for a while and.
And if you want them white again, just drop a little bleach in there. You can also use bleach. If you're willing to take the risk, if you need a white area in your watercolor and you lost the white area, you can use a little Q-tip and put some bleach in there, and it will bleach it white pretty quickly. But then squirt some water in there to dilute the bleach so it doesn't burn right through. I did that with an 8-foot painting once when I was desperate to get in more white areas.
I was just going to ask you, what is one of the biggest watercolor paintings you've done?
That one was the biggest. It was 4 feet by 8 feet, and I used 6 panels of arches and I had a boyfriend at the time built me a frame to mount it. It was for a school project at university.
How big was your brush?
I can show you. Well, it was a 4-inch. I have Japanese and Chinese wash brushes.
Yeah, a 4-inch flat brush.
I had the 4-inch flat. I also have the 4-inch or the fat. Here, I'll show you all my big brushes.
Yeah, show us the big brushes.
There you go. So this one here is great. I think it's more than 4 inches. I think it was 6 inches. That's from China. Yeah. This one's great because it doesn't take up too much paint. Like if I use this one here, you see how thick that is? Can you see those?
Down a bit. Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Well, this one, like, see how thick it is? That soaks up a lot of paint. And that's good if you're doing like a sky or some area that you need to really fill in. But this is better because the brush isn't as fat. This one's really good for doing, detail things. And this was my grandfather's brush that I inherited. He was the only other artist in the family. And he was a cabinet maker as well. So yeah, those are some of them are still clean because I hardly ever use them. Yeah. This one got moths in it. Got moth eaten there. So watch out for moths with your brushes.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, something to learn. And these are really good, like the house paint kind of brushes. They're really good for doing big washes. Skies. Yeah. But yeah. And then my small brushes are here. My favorite brush is somewhere in this mess here. Oh, there it is. That's my favorite brush. And it's got a really nice point on the end.
Yeah, that's what you want. Yeah, you want a nice point here. Yeah, you need a versatile brush when you go out painting. You don't want to have 5 brushes in your hand when you're doing a watercolor.
I only ever carry one brush when I go travel. I have my outdoor brush. That's my brush for doing plein air. I don't take my favorite brush is out with me because things fall in the snow and you lose
I've
them.
lost, yeah, I've pushed him in the ground beside me, and I've walked away from him and
Oh
lost
yeah,
him.
easy to
And
do.
things not to do. Yeah.
So this painting is an oil painting of Barron Canyon. And Barron Canyon is the northeast end of Algonquin Park. And Tom Thompson painted it quite a lot. Excuse me, but it wasn't called Barron Canyon at that time. It was called Gorges of the Petawawa, or Petawawa Gorge. And my husband was going up to Petawawa, so I went with him to try and find this gorge because I'd been obsessing over it. And this painting I did before I got there, just from photographs and from having obsessed about it for so long. And then when we got there, there was no gorge at Petawawa. It was in Algonquin. And so we got a hiking trail we found, and you can go in for a 1 hour day trip kind of, and up on top of the cliff looking down into the gorge. So that's what this painting was. I think this one might have been after I'd been there. Anyway, and you can just see those beautiful rock cliffs from a distance, but the water was so rich and so deep. I called this the blue pearl of Algonquin. So it was a really stunning view, but it was also this kind of teasing, taunting thing because I couldn't get into the canyon. And so finally, I'd been 3 times, and then we went for Thanksgiving weekend, and we rented a canoe and portaged in, and it's 2 portages, kind of one in, one out. And we were the only people alone in the canyon for the day. And I painted probably 500 paintings from that one day experience. It was so stunning. And then I nearly died there, so I don't paint there anymore.
Oh boy.
I'm not going to talk about it because I get upset, but you can read my blog, hilaryslater.com. Go to the blog page. The whole story is written there. So
Excellent. Yeah. No, we all have, I guess, those moments. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the city or out in the country, but you definitely have to be careful when you buy yourself out in the country because it's, like you said, it's very remote. And if nobody knows that you're there, they'll find you later, but it's pleasant. Maybe your night and your watercolors will be beside you, so you have to be careful about that.
There's a group called hugatree.com that's run by a friend of mine, and it actually saved my life that day. But her son died of hypothermia, and she started the Hug a Tree program, which trains children to stay put and hug a tree instead of wandering, because you wander to your dominant hand, and I'm left-handed, so they had a harder time finding me. But yeah, it's a really important thing to hug a tree.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. So. Because I think a lot of artists that do wander off, you're busy painting and you're not always focused on where you're going, and things can go wrong.
Following light, you keep following the trail, or you follow that plant, and pretty soon you're in a circle somewhere else. You don't know where you.
There's no street signs.
Oh, and the bird is eating all the breadcrumbs, so you don't.
So this painting here is of the roses that are hanging to dry right now behind me. Ray bought me a dozen roses for Valentine's, and it sparked a creative burst. So there's flowers, and I've done these 4 round ones. They're for the Pie Art Squared show that Kate Taylor runs in Toronto every spring. And then I also did all these ones here as well. So I was just sick of painting white. I had done a month of pleinair with the Strata Easel Challenge, and I just went, okay, I'm sick of white. I want to paint some color. This one was the flowers my son gave to his girlfriend. That one there. So I just went off on a flower binge.
Well, when you're in February, you have to find some foliage and color somewhere. So it is, but it's coming.
Acrylic. It was acrylic, and it was fast and furious. I just blitzed them out. It was emotional. It was fast. There was an urgency to just getting my emotions out on canvas.
I'm envious because I haven't really painted much in the last little while. I should have been painting all winter, but I haven't done that.
Well, it doesn't happen always. Read my book. There's a whole chapter about that.
We'd like to do that. I think there is a book we're going to talk about here very shortly here.
Yes.
I don't know if that we're nearing the end of what we're doing here today, but I think, do you have anything else that you'd want to talk about, like to share with people a little bit?
I would like to share my book because I think it addresses 43 years of art experiences, and
David might have that shot of the book.
I have a shot of it here.
I don't know. David, are you there? Yeah. Oh, okay, there's the book. There we go. There we go.
This is the proof copy, so there's a gray stripe across it, but that's what it's going to look like, and it's got pictures inside.
Excellent.
43 of some of my favorite personal paintings that I haven't sold, or some that have sold, and it's a book about how to be an artist and where you're at, what stage of the art journey are you at, and how to get to the next stage, or what the stages defined are the challenges of getting to the next stage.
Yeah.
So
where can people get this book?
It'll be on Amazon by Friday. I just sent them the final proof, the 12th proof of corrections, and hopefully this one's good.
There we go.
There you go.
That's just,
so that's the image, and it's on Kindle for $5, I think it is. And the Canadian price I set at the same price as the American, so $24 Canadian or $24 US, just to give Canadian artists a discount, because it would be like $33 or something.
Yes, it would be. Yes. Yeah.
So I won't make as much money, but I think it's better to have artists have the opportunity to read the ideas that I have to share.
Yeah.
And it's been a long process, I mean, 43 years of being an artist, and the things I've learned, and having been a teacher as well, and have a Bachelor of Education, so I was teaching art, but this is really about the emotional aspect of being an artist. It's about what to do when you hit the blocks, or depression, or the black hole of 6 months of not painting. Those are the things I've addressed.
That's the one I'm in. That's the one I'm in.
That's the one you want.
I gotta get your book. I think I needed a kick in the behind is what I needed more.
Well, it's a kick in the behind book. And my next stage after this, I'm going to create a workbook that's like exercises to help with those processes.
Oh, nice.
If I kick myself in the behind to get it going, it might take another year to do another book. But
right. Well, so many of us are working alone in our studios, right? This is the thing. Yeah. We so-called, we're independent, but no, we're not. We're social, and we like to go to functions that are selling our work, but we also have our friend bases, and whether they're family or whether they're actually other artists that we share a commonality with. And I think it's so important.
What's great about this book is that it makes you feel like, okay, good, I'm not the only one. I think that's why I wrote it, was to say, look, if you're depressed, this is part of being an artist. You're not crazy. The rest of the world, the non-art world, might say, oh, what's wrong with you? Cheer up, snap out of it.
Well, you're having fun.
What do you have to be depressed about? You're just playing with paint all day.
I know.
And this book just slaps that away. This is about what it feels like to actually be in your studio alone all day, working on your craft, trying to get better, painting it out, and not having the response that you want, or not having any response at all during COVID, right? We were all in lockdown. So it's really addressing all of the aspects of the energy of being an artist and the emotional challenges, and how to kind of find a path out of that and work through it, or accept what you're going through when you're going through it. Because I've been through it all, so I'm the perfect experience.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say that you've been through it. Yeah, you've been through it all.
Yeah. I get depressed on a regular basis, and I know now that it's part of the process of being an artist, is allowing that depression to happen. And it's kind of like a tidal wave, as I was telling Camille the other day, that when your creative lull happens, when you're not creating, and then depression happens, it means that you're sinking like the water level in the ocean. And as the water level sinks, everything goes down. So your energy goes down in order to come back with a massive wave of a tidal wave. And in this case, the tidal wave is creativity. So really, depression is a positive sign that you're going to be creating something spectacular in the future.
Well, that's great.
That's
Well,
my
it's
take.
been Well, it's been really good talking with you. I mean, this is a good, inspiring conversation. I think we need this this time of year. It's kind of nice.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
sure
the leaderboat can
Stephen
be
is just itching to ask a question. I know he is.
You know the yes, Paul. I ask the same
Before I get
questions every.
questions. Okay.
It's the same questions I ask every artist. So if we were going to put all your links and everything below, I have to do the below
Great.
thing, or David gets mad. But if somebody wants to buy one of your watercolors or one of your acrylics, what is the range between X and Z? Like,
Okay,
what's
so
the low side and the high side?
300 to 3,000.
Okay.
That's kind of like a ballpark range. I
Okay.
wasn't expecting the question, but yeah, that's generally. It depends whether it's framing and postage, and if it's on site at my studio tour, which is the Bay Studio Tour in September, October, the end of September, beginning of October, that weekend. I sometimes have like $100 rack where I'm
Nice.
just the death of these pieces, and they have to go out. Like it's adoption time, right?
Right.
To go.
They have to find a home. So.
Yeah. So once in a while, yeah, I do a $100 freebie clear out for people who can't afford art usually. And then I'm also at the Coldwater Studio Tour in June 24th, I think, that weekend. And I'll probably have some discount, not to that level, but yeah, like if I'm carrying things to a show, that's a carload of schlepping and putting. I charge more for that work.
You're sure you're schlepping. You got to charge for the schlep.
It'll be a great weekend as well. And then I'll be at the Butter Tart Festival in June 10th that weekend, and I'll probably have some smaller items there as well. So
Very
I
cool.
have little pieces that are kind of $40 framed,
Right.
so little tiny ones. So there.
But then they get a one of a kind by you, which is very nice.
Absolutely.
And also to your book, I think whether you're an artist or not, just to be able to read about someone, how they get through their depression, I think is going to be very interesting just for people in general.
That's
So
a great point.
I would urge people to
also
buy the book.
Learn about what artists have to deal with. If you're an art buyer, if you're thinking of purchasing art, understanding what an artist's experience and what their challenges are, I think it makes you value the art more, and you understand what you're looking for more, and you're doing your art research to collect for your own gallery. I have an art collection in our house of probably over 100 pieces of other artists' work. So I think it's there's also one thing I want to comment on about that. I'm just plugging in here. When you buy original art as opposed to poster or print, there's an energy that the art gives out permanently, kind of like the way you listen to music and you can feel what a musician's feeling when you listen to music, you feel that experience. It's the same with original art. When you're living with a piece of artwork, it will give you the energy and the emotion that the artist put into it forever. And
I agree.
It's been recorded in galleries because people have what's called art swooning experiences and because it happens in big galleries most often. There's 12% of the population experiences art swooning, which is an emotional response to a painting, to like fainting and hysteria and all kinds of. I've had an experience myself, but it's really it's a valid consideration that the art is going to give you emotion, and if you love it, it will give you the positive emotion of the painter.
Things to aspire to, for sure. Yeah, as an artist, to make sure that
the reason to buy
real those mechanisms.
Right? AI art will never give you that.
That is true.
You're right. And I've cried over a lot of my own art already.
Well, we don't want to buy that.
No, it's very emotional art. It's going into the garbage can, but it's
definitely like there's an emotional. There are people who fainted and swooning and hysteria in front of famous people.
I think it's a comedy. What do you do? Well, it'd be nice to see that. It'd be nice to see that kind of response to, I know probably with Group of Seven works, there are some that are very attached to that following and of artists, and they do get. I guess if you've been following and reading, and all of a sudden one day you have an opportunity to actually see it for yourself, and there's nobody else really around. It can be emotional, very emotional to you, because you've seen it only in books, and you wanted for so long to see something that finally when you get there, it's sort of like when you travel. If you've been thinking about Italy all your life, and finally one day when you go to Italy and it's exactly or better than what you had, you almost want to just sit down and just,
spiritual experience. Yeah.
it is.
There's definitely that part of it, but there's also the fact that the energy of the artist, when they were painting that painting, is fused into the visual experience. And it's something about the energy of the artist. It's not just, oh, I'm finally seeing this. It's happened to when you've never seen the painting before, and it's just like, oh, you just look at the painting for the first time and you have this emotional experience. There's a term for it. They've got some sort of syndrome. They've got a syndrome term for it, and I can't quite remember it right now, but you can go Google it. And,
Okay.
Go find it out for yourself.
Well, we want to thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, really, because I've been swooning here, just sitting quietly watching all the art come by. So
Yes.
Oh, lovely.
I hope people who've been watching it today have also been swooning. And I've learned a lot.
I hope so too.
And also buy Hilary's book, because I think that'll be an interesting book. And being an art collector myself, I appreciate art has to make me have an emotional something before I buy it. So what you said, I agree with 1,000%. I walk into a gallery, if I like it, I know it because it hits you, and it's like I have to have it.
Yeah.
If I like it and I'm like, I'll think about it, probably not going to get it. And then there's some where you just know you must acquire it that second. And there's others that just grow on you over time. You're like, no, I need to go back and get it. So it really is one of those things. So I agree with that 1,000%. But thank you so much, Paul. As always, you do a wonderful job. David and I get to do nothing, which we love. It's just sit here and look pretty all day. Paul has shows every Thursday, everybody. If you like, subscribe, tell your friends, leave comments below. We'll probably have Hilary back at some point, and we'll talk about maybe her second book. Have a wonderful day.
Sure, that will.